Hi, Cat Floss. Just doing another recording for you today. If you remember my last recording, I've got a lot to tell you, but I did do this recording, which is here. And in this recording, just long, right? 9 pages long. The 2018 version is 34 pages long, and the 2022 version is 49 pages long. So in that video, I was talking about the two treaties of Waitangi. Well, there are actually 3. Actually, there are quite several. Actually, the Treaty of Waitangi. Now, SOS, Scotland, Ireland, England, Australia, and New Zealand. SOS, whatever's going on in New Zealand, the same thing is going on in each of your countries. Now, how it all comes about, you can date it back. The birth certificate was created in 1837 by Queen Victoria. Previously to that, all lands were held by the Magna Carta. Either the religions or people that were born to royalty held all the lands, and everybody else was a peon slave. Now, what they did is they brought in thousands, and Germany had been overwhelmed by these religions, and in 15-something, a man called Martin Luther rose up against the religious orders, the religious laws that were cruel, boiling people alive, hanging people, four-quartering people. Four-quartering people was when they tied each of the arms up and then each of the legs up. They tied each of those limbs to horses. They hoisted the man up onto a high, scaffold or something. And then they hitched up the arms and legs to the 4 horses. And then they would beat the horses until the horses ran, and the man would literally be ripped apart as he was alive. These were some of the cruel punishments that were bestowed upon the Protestants of Germany and France and all of those places. Boiling people alive, decapitation of people, hanging. They used to call us originally, the Protestant people were called non-Christians. Now, I don't know how the Protestants got hauled into being called Christians, but in actual fact, the Protestant people were called non-Christians, and it was the non-Christians that were slaughtered over the 30 years war. Now, all of those Protestants ended up on the run, or by design. They ended up in Scotland, Ireland, and England, and then the same 2 religions, the Jewish and the Catholics, entered those countries, took over all their lands. Those countries brought in the Protestants to get them out, and then the Protestants ended up rising up under Queen Victoria, and we were put under all those lands became the ownership of the people. It's all a bit complicated. Now, what had happened was they started putting all those Protestants and sent them out to 5 different countries. Well, actually 6. Hong Kong was another one of those countries. Hong Kong, South Africa, America, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And as you know, that in America they threw the British out. And they did not accept that the peon slaves could rise up and govern themselves and own their own land by the birth certificate. So they threw them all out, and then they took over there. So America's got their own battle. Each country's got their own battle, but there's a huge battle going on presently for the countries of Ireland, Scotland, and New Zealand. Now, I'm not sure where Australia sits in all of this. But what they're doing in New Zealand is they've handed the entire country back to a few hundred natives, and they've said that nobody else has any power. So I've said to the people, well, what you've got to do, because in fact we do have powers, we do have documents that were signed. We have many documents that were signed by this man here, Tamati Wakanene, who was a paramount king fighting against his own people to protect the native Anglo-German settlers, Scottish settlers and Irish convicts that were brought to New Zealand. Tamati Wakanene was their protector, and he signed many documents into law to protect them. But not only that, so in the other video I talked about the two treaties. So I was at my school, I was not able to show you the two treaties, but I'll see if I can show you the two treaties now, okay? So now I've got to be a little, before I do that, actually, I'll just put over here my little here. If anybody wants to give a donation to Kate Floss, every little bit counts. My court cases, when I did go into the court, I'm not expecting to win, so I don't like people to give me money in order that thinking that I'm going to win a court case or anything like that. I'm just the beginning of the first fighter, and many others will come after me, but I'm not the one that's going to win. I'm not that clever, but I am in the courts. If you want to give a donation to Kate Floss, you can put it into, I don't know why it's got Auckland Savings Bank, ASB. I don't know if that's Auckland Savings Bank, ASB. You can put the money into my New Zealand ASB account and buy me a hat if you want to buy me a hat for my various videos. So I'll just put that up there. If you want to put, I know everybody's asking for money. I don't like to ask for money, but if you want to put something in for me and you enjoy my videos, you can put something in. But I won't be, please don't expect anything back from me, because I'm only just following on my own path. Okay, so I've put that up there for you. Now we'll go into these treaties of Waitangi. The first one. Now, as I've been doing these videos quite a bit, as they've been taking them, they've been removing these websites as fast as what I can make them. Okay, so I'll get you to have a look at here. So here's here's the original. If you go in here, all you've got to do is Google Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975, but you have to put on, now this is a different one. So you can see here, Treaty of Waitangi, you have to put in number 114. If you don't put in number 114, you're going to get a completely different act. This act here is our ancient act, and I'm going to explain to you why the ordinances are very important to you with the bills of exchange. So here is the original act, and what you'll see here, you can compare, is that there's nothing below here, all right? So I'm not going to go into everything, but if you look at the other one, this is from 1275 through to 2023, which include many English laws, but it does not include the same English laws as this one, as you'll be able to see here. So these these laws here are actually New Zealand laws, and they start from 1841. Now remember that date, because I'm going to tell you something important about that date of 1841. And it ends in 2007. What you'll see here is that all the British laws haven't been attached to it. In fact, you won't even see our 1688 Bill of Rights on here. Why won't you see our 1688 Bill of Rights on here? I'll explain that to you later. But the 1688 Bill of Rights is right in here on this one. All right? Now, I'm going to explain that to you later. So these are the laws. So this has got all the British laws, and it's got this law here of 1843, and this is the Judicial Committee Act of 1843. And then you'll see, then it skips a lot of years. Like you'll see in here that there's no 1841, 1842, and 1844, and 1847. you will see 1852, but that is the Wills Amendment Act. So that's not going to be the same as these ones here. Now, this ones here has got, so if you look here this has got the 1852. This has got the Appropriation Act, the Land Registration, which is a number 2. And you'll see here that it goes to 1852. Now, I want you to remember these acts of number 1, number 2, Land Registration, Amendment Acts. These things are going to be coming up important for you later. For some reason, this is about all the revenue of the islands. And this was done for 1852. We'll have to go back and read that. It's got all the treasuries in there, all right? And then it's got all the land registrations, and these are the ordinances that go on to that, okay? Now, so what I'm just saying to you, so the 1843 is not in here. So 1843, which is here, that gives you the Judicial Committee Act. But let me see where I'm looking here. So I'll just stay on the treatise for a minute. That's what I want to teach you. So if you go to the 1841 and you see your Treaty of Waitangi, this is the 114, that you'll see here that this is still administered by the Crown. This one's the Act binds the Crown. And then, but if you go to 1975 on this one, you'll see that this is now being administered by a New Zealand Maori group called Te Puni Kokiri. And you're going to have to go and research these yourself, but I'll show you the important points. The important points of contention are that if you go to section 6, it's only 6 subsections long, and what it says is, all it says is, if they claim to be prejudicially affected by any act or regulation, and then it says to be adopted, this is future tense, to be adopted by the Crown. That one there has got that there. But if you go over to section 6 of this one, it's very, 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 very long. It's several sections long, and it's had all these repeals come about in 2018. They made a whole bunch of laws, and then after they had administered all of the things that they wanted to administer, they then went and repealed them so that they could never be prosecuted or called to a court of law in regards to them. Where is section 6? So section 6 here changes, because it says any Maoris which are prejudicially affected by the Legislative Council of New Zealand, and it adds New Munster, which is the South Island. And then it says anyone who's affected since the 6th of February 1840, so they've backdated it, and they've included all ordinances into there that they can take. Now, this is all administered by a Maori body and not administered by no Anglo people are allowed in on any of these committees to make these discussions. And yet, if you go to section 9, it's long because they've added so much. You can go and get this yourself. But if you go to section 9, they've put here that you have the right to petition the House of Representatives, right? And you'll find out about this right to petition in a minute when I tell you about your ordinances. I'm doing ordinances today. I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can, but I just do my best. You can turn up the speed. If you're not interested in watching the videos, don't complain to me. It takes me a long time to make them and plan them. It takes about 2 hours to plan one of these videos. So, it's no good complaining to me that the video is long. I'm just putting it up there and you can take it if you want it. This one says that Section 9 was replaced by the Constitution Act of 1986. Now, if you go and look at that, it comes to a dead end, and they have not actually put in that Constitution what this piece here means. So we don't know what it means. And then they've put the Constitution Act of a 114. So we'd have to go and check that. But in Section 9 of this one, it simply says that we have the right to petition Parliament and any body, B-O-D-Y, that is set up by Parliament to deal the petition to Parliament. And that means you have to go through the High Court, then Appeals Court, then Supreme Court by your declaration. That's where you have to go. So we're going to take that down for a minute, and then I'm going to just go and talk to you about your ship's ordinances. But I'll come back on here and I'll show you where they are in a minute. All right, so I'm going to show you where they are, but I'll just show you mine. So what I've just recently, I'm trying to have my wrinkles. What I've just recently been advertising on my Maripian site. I've got my Maripians and I've got my K-Floss YouTube channel, and I've got my Maripian site, which I don't know, I might change that name because we want to include Scotland and Ireland in England and all of this, because they've got all the same problem. They've got these ordinances too, and all of theirs come from the ships that were shipped out from Germany during the years, from the years of 1688 and even to the years of 1837. So 1837, any ships that were sent out from Germany to England, they've all got ships' names, and they are all keepers of these ordinances. Their names are on them. So it was the people that were living there owned the land, and then the people, they were not able to build the infrastructure, one. Their tribes weren't able to stop fighting. And it was this problem, even the Germans, it was the same problem. Their tribes couldn't stop fighting over who was going to be the big hoo-ha. Since they couldn't decide who was going to be the big hoo-ha, they weren't able to engage in any international trade, any shipping trade or nothing, because they didn't have a government that was vested in one body that could make decisions on behalf of the entire country. So if you haven't got that, then you're not able to set up a government that can manage your resources and your commerce and all of that. And therefore, you never could evolve into what you have today, whether you think today is bad or not, I don't know. You're welcome to go put on a grass skirt and live back in the bush if you want to. But anyway, so what they did was they brought in a whole bunch of German Protestants who were known to be, at the time, the best builders, the best engineers, the most acquainted with law, with hundreds of years of law systems behind them. They had fought for hundreds of years, and they'd come up with some legal systems that would be viable. I'm going to read that to you later. We'll go on to that later when I talk about the first laws of New Zealand, but not today. Today we're doing ordinances. So they brought those into Scotland, Ireland, and England, and it was those people that were building the country. They built the hospitals, they built the schools, they built the houses, they built the industry. All the industry was created by the German settlers. German Protestants of each of those countries. They all have ordinances. So we were all a two people in Scotland and Ireland and New Zealand and Australia. We were two people. One held the land, one held the governance, and also all of the infrastructure was held by that one. And we were together put into these trusts through our birth certificates, and we are both owners of those trusts. The Protestants and the Catholics are both owners. The allodial landholders and the first lawmakers, they own all of these trusts, all right? So what you've got to do, what the United Nations have decided to do, is to give all the land back to those original natives. Then all these people, all these Protestants and all these Germans that have been living there for hundreds of years, they had their nationality severed from them so that they could create the law. They have been pushed aside. Hundreds of years of building these nations pushed aside, and but the fact of the matter is that they own the banking trust of the country. So these native people are after that trust. It's your trust. It's not theirs. There's going to be a battle. And so how do you find who, if you're on that trust or where you belong? You've got to date back your ship you've got to date back your ship. You've got to date back your birth certificate to 1837, because that's when it was created in Scotland, Ireland, and England, 1837. The birth certificates were not created. English law only came as a scaffolding to New Zealand on January 14th, 1840. It came to New Zealand in 1839 through Queen Victoria, but they couldn't place English laws onto the New Zealand land. It was an abomination to God, and they simply weren't able to do it. They tried, I think. They took several natives to England, and they tried to make them subjects over in England, or even they couldn't make them citizens. Why couldn't they make them citizens? Because they never could make, in the original times, they could never make anybody a citizen of a country. They only could make you a national of the country. And to be a national, you had to be born of the land by both parents and grandparents, dating several generations back actually, to the land. That way you could be a national of that land. And from that, they were able to later create citizenship where you could be a national from another country, travel from that country to this country, and then they would make you citizen on arrival, but you never could relinquish your nationality, which was your umbilical cord to the earth, to your birth certificate. So that you can't ever sever that. So the New Zealand Maoris, because they didn't have a nationality, because they didn't, not only New Zealand Maori, Australian Aboriginals, several countries around the world, even Thailand, they were not able to create one body. Since they weren't able to create one body, they weren't able to create a nationality. Since they weren't able to create a nationality, they weren't able to conduct business in commerce, they weren't able to travel, they weren't able to do a lot of things. This is before the passport system was brought in. So why am I talking about this? You've got to go back to your ships. So what had happened was they brought the English law into the various countries as a scaffolding, but they could not attach the natives of the country to that scaffolding. It was an impossibility under God. So what they did was, in 1841, between 1840, well, actually several children also, there were from 1689, I think it is, to 1840, there were many children that were born to the land of New Zealand or Australia, all right? And because of that, they couldn't be British nationals, but they couldn't be attached to that land either, because that land had no nationality. So all children born in those countries, whether they were half caste or not, had no nationality upon their birth, and they were stuck there in no man's land, to my limited knowledge. This is just how I'm trying to figure it out. Someone can come back and dispute me. You're all welcome to come back and dispute me. This is how I'm comprehending it. In 1840, they brought the British. What they needed was a bunch of people to come from those countries. When they arrived on the ship, before they left the ship, they severed the nationality. They completely severed their nationality. So for my one, it was the German nationality. I know there are Scottish ordinances, there are Irish ordinances. I'm not sure that there are English ordinances. There may be others. I'm only, you've got to find your own. I'm on my path, you find yours. When the ship arrived in New Zealand or Australia, they severed the nationality, and then in 1841, and then on the ship, they made them subjects of the Queen, of Queen Victoria. They made them subjects of Queen Victoria, who's over here, who was working together with Tamati Wakanene and a lovely man called Patu Oni, who I haven't put his picture up yet, but I think his name, I always call him Patu 1. So I'll call him Patu 1, meaning it was number 1, but apparently it's Patu Oni. So they made them subjects. When they stepped on the shore, it's like the Matrix. If you go into the Matrix video, you'll see them with the connections. So what they said is, so they severed their nationality, which put them lost in space, and they removed them from the earth in that moment. Then they reconnected them up onto the earth to the Supreme Court of New Zealand. And that's how they were able to set up a court in New Zealand that did not require the natives of New Zealand or Australia to relinquish their I don't like to say indigenuity, but I will just this moment, their nativeness, their godliness. They couldn't do it with them, so they needed guinea pigs to do it first. So we got given, now what was set up was, so Supreme Court came in, then they brought in a bunch of people, severed their nationality, then reconnected them onto a Supreme Court of New Zealand in 1841. Now, you can't have a Supreme Court without a subject, and you can't have a subject without a Supreme Court. So they had to make this connection. They connected them up, locked them in, locked the umbilical cord in, just like in the Matrix. And then they connected that up to a bank, which was called, they say it was called the Union Bank. Now, this happened twice in New Zealand's history, to my knowledge. It came under the 1843 and also in 1858 when they did it with another ship. I'm not sure why they needed another ship, but they did. So here's my ordinance. So this is my ordinance here, and so I hope you can see that. So it's strange way they've done it. So this was the ordinance that all the persons particularly annexed to be settled in the colony have graciously assented to the removal from them the disabilities which alien are by law subject. When you own a nationality and you enter another country, you're an alien to that country. They removed our alien status, which basically meant they removed our nationality. And then that's how they connect. And then they made us natural born subjects of Her Majesty, the same as they've been respectively born within the realm of New Zealand, of England. So they said they're not born to England. They were not able to take the subjects of England and attach them to New Zealand because they were already subjects attached to the Supreme Court in England through Queen Victoria. I'm thinking they've got something along these lines over there as well. Then they connected up Ireland, then they connected up Scotland. That's how it was all done. Now, so this was done in 1843, right? Now I'm going to show you where this is in a minute. And what you'll notice here is all the names. So I've got 5. There's mine. There's 1, Sixtus, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 Sixtuses on these. They all came on the St. Pauli in 18. Well, they've got it. See, I want you to recognize these numbers. This is a number 2 in 1844. But you need to be careful because they've changed this. This is the schedule that is connecting up the joint stock company for Queen Victoria of the Union Bank of Australia. And then this was also connected up to the Union Bank of New Zealand. And it says the board of the directors of the branch of the Union Bank of Australia established do hereby declare that the foregoing annexed as the case list of names is the true list of all the now existing members of the said company. Now, there are many of you that have got these. Now, when you look at that, you'll see that it's on page 388 and 389. Okay, now here's another one, just in case you want to be having a lot. So this is a session 1, and then this was done. These are Germans as well, and this was done in 1847 and 1848, and this was for New Munster, which was in the treaty that I just showed you. So they included all of New Munster, and it says. It does say here New Zealand. Now, it's really important that you notice that it does say New Zealand, because I'm going to show you in a minute a video. So these are coming to the province of New Munster, and they were made natural born subjects of Her Majesty. Their alien status was removed also, which basically meant that their nationality was removed from them, severed from them. They were severed from the umbilical cord of the earth, and for a moment in time they were lost in space. Then they reconnected them onto the Supreme Court, so that was the way that they were able to establish a country. Now, I don't want to move that. Don't move that. Right, so if you come over here to our Act, so we're out of the Treaty of Waitangi now, so I don't want you to be looking at that. But what you'll see here is the 1841, and what you'll see here is the Supreme Court Act, which is a number 1. Then you'll see here the New South Wales Act, which was repealed in 1841. That was a number 2. So they created this Supreme Court Act here, and then they were able to sever New Zealand from New South Wales so that they could be a country in their own right. So that's how that came about. And then they created the New Zealand Banking Company Act, which was also a number 1. But you cannot have a Supreme Court without a subject, because the Supreme Court. So what you'll see here is you'll see no 1688 Bill of Rights. You'll see that come up. Here. So these are all the English laws. So you might say to yourself, oh, why have they got all the English laws here up to 2023? Why don't they have the English laws here from 1841 when they established the Supreme Court? In my view, as a layman who is not a lawyer and has no idea what they're talking about, but in my mind, you'll see here it goes right up to 1837, and then it skips. 1837 is when the birth certificate, and then it skips 1837 to 1841, 1842 over here. In my opinion, this is in 1841 is when they severed England from New Zealand, and they created the New Zealand Supreme Court, which was still under the restrictions. Now, why was it under the restrictions of England? Because you'll see here in so what do we have in 1842? In 1842, you've got the repeal, and then you've got the Postages Act. This is when they set up the post office. That was done in 1842. You've got your land claims, which is a number 14. Now, you have to remember that because that is connected to Tamati Wakanene, number 14. So, you can see that it skips 1843, which 1843 is here. It goes to 1844. Now, 1844, you'll see my German Settlers Act that I just showed you, but they've done a wee switcheroo. They've severed the bank from it. I don't know why. So there's the names, and there's them, right? So you can see that. So they, and then you'll see, now, okay, let me just go back here for a minute. So that was done in 1844. So it's Queen Victoria created the birth certificate 1837, came to New Zealand on January the 14th, 1840. 1841, they set up the Supreme Court, but they had no subjects. And then 1844, they created subjects. Now, the 1688 Bill of Rights could not be put as part of New Zealand legislation because it's a British legislation. It's a British constitution, basically. It's the Wills Act. What we got was the Wills Act here of 1837. That's where 1837 you got the Wills Act here. And then that comes from the 1688 Bill of Rights, which is here. Now, I've always called this the will. I call it the will of Jesus because this is our will. And on this will are our right to petition the king, our right to freedom of speech, and our oath of the AB. The AB is us, that no state, now it says here, no state, no foreign prince, nor prelate, nor state should have any preeminent superiority, authority, ecclesiastical, spiritual within this realm or over us. And then it gives us the liberties to be allowed to petition to the Parliament for a declaration of our indubitable right. And then it gives them the limitations of Crown of how they must govern us. And so this is the contract of their corporation. So basically what it has here, it's a bit complicated, but you can all go and read it and figure it out for yourselves. I'm just doing my best here. So basically what you have here is the 1688 is British law, and then in 1844 they removed the nationality of certain ships. From those ships they attached them to the Supreme Court of New Zealand, which also attached them to the 1837 Wills Act, which comes from the 1688, because that is the will from the 1688. So that's where the whole country is sat. Then in 1847, you'll see here, Thomas Walker Nene, he was naturalised. He comes up under a number 14, which was the Lands Act. So he got naturalised as a number 14. So he's in there. And so this is how they connected all of us up together. We are all inextricably woven together. They cannot separate us. Try as they might, it's not possible. So because of what was done with our ordinances, now there are other ordinances as well. You have to go and find yours. This is the 1858 one, and you'll see here the Naturalisation Act of 1858, and then that one is tied to all sorts of trusts, and that is also tied to the Supreme Court Judges Act. So that's all connected up as well. I'm not quite sure how all this comes about. Now, so now these ordinances, that if we go back to 1844, there's the German Settlers Act, which they've severed. So I can put this up here now. So that's the German Settlers Act, which they severed from the Supreme Court. Now look here, this is the number 1. There's the Supreme Court. And then you'll see, you'll have to go and read this here yourself. But this Supreme Court, if I can find it, these are the declarations that I just showed you in the 1688. IAB do solemnly and sincerely declare that I'm a barrister of the Superior Courts of England, Ireland, or Scotland. They're the only ones originally that were permitted to govern over us, and made and declared on the day before me. Here we go again, IAB. Now this AB is very important. IAB do solemnly and sincerely declare that I am an attorney of Her Majesty's Court of Westminster. So this is in New Zealand law. And then Queen Victoria, under the grace of God, which is the 1688. We command that you without delay render the aforesaid the sum. And so this is how they do all their things here. So this is the Supreme Court. Now you're going to go here to the Union Bank of Australia, which is the number 1. And then if you go down here, you'll see the attachment. Here's the AB. We are the managers of this bank and this Supreme Court and this corporation. We own it. It's ours. All the money that's in there is ours. Everything is in there that they have is ours. What they have managed to do is to create bills for us, set up businesses, create bills for us, and then get all their money by charging us hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars from our trust. That's where they're taking all the money from, our trust. And our trust is getting more into debt because they're creating bills. Now, so that's why, now you'll see here that this is number 388 of the Victoria, and it's an AB, and I am AB, and the true list of all the names, it's a 388, and it's in the schedules, and that is what has been removed from here, which this is a 389. So that was originally attached to this here as one document. That was 388, and here's the 389. Now, it may not be deceptive because what they've gone and done is put it onto the Union Bank of Australia Act as a number 1 and the Supreme Court Act as a number 1, and then we've come in to be the owners of the trust in the number 2, right? Through our ordinance. Now, so I think that's all that I want to tell you. Oh, no, I wanted to tell you about this one here. Now, that is attached to a thing called the Bills of Exchange Act of 1883. And then if you go down to the schedules of the Bills of Exchange, which is on page 45, so that is attached to the 1883 Bills of Exchange. And then here's the schedule here. This is for you. This is your protest. So the other one was talking about the lawyers and the judges. But this one here is for you. And this is your ABGHJK, form of protest which may be used when the services of a notary cannot be obtained. I've put this in my court document. Know all men that I be the householder of the colony of New Zealand, at the request of CD, there being no notary republic available, did on the day of such and such demand payment or acceptance of the bill of exchange here underwritten from EF, to which demand he made answer, wherefore I now in the presence of GH and JK do protest the said bill of exchange. So CD, they're sending you a bill, right? And you have said, I'm the householder and I do not accept this bill. I protest that bill. And you can protest it if it violates any of your right under the 1688, which is a whole different kettle of fish. So this is the bill here. And then also, you've got to read this bill of exchange. There's a lot in here. I'm not going to go over it all today because I'm only doing your ordinances, why your ordinances are important. But if you go to number 21, you'll see here on number 4, it says, an inland bill is a bill which is, or on the face of it purports to be, both drawn and payable within the colony, or drawn within the colony upon some person resident therein. Any other bill is called a foreign bill. So they're different. And then there's some issues there. Unless the contrary appear on the face of the bill, the holder may treat it as an inland bill. But if you can prove that that is a foreign bill and you don't want to pay for it, such as the United Nations and the human rights bullshit, and that's a foreign bill and not an inland bill, if you can prove that and refuse to pay that bill, then you're not bound to that bill, in my very limited Kate Floss conspiracy theory. The drawee must be named or otherwise indicated in a bill with a reasonable certainty. Presently, the human rights, the United Nations, is a drawee of bills because it's attached to the 1990 Bill of Rights, which they've attached to the 1688, which is attached to New Zealand. It's all about this umbilical cord. And they've become a foreign drawee within our country. Now, on number 8, it says, when a bill contains words prohibiting transfer or indicating an intention that it should not be transferable, it is valid as between the parties thereto, but is not negotiable. Now that comes back under the Treaty of Waitangi that I told you about. If you go to the 2 treaties, which you've got the 19, is it on here? Just a moment. Right, so you've got your 1990 Treaty of Waitangi 114. So that is this bill here. They created bills from this. And then this is on the face of it. This is the agreement that we made with them. All right? Then they came back later in 2022, and they altered it. And this is the 2022 where it was then administered under some group of Maori that we don't know who they are, And then a false narrative was placed into there. And so this is not what we agreed to. And so if you wanted to call in your bill of exchange, then you could challenge this new one here. But if nobody calls it out, then it's legal. It's legal until somebody enters the court and challenges it. So that's why we need our ordinances. Now, I'm going to go off of all of there. I think I've pretty much explained that. Oh, I forgot to explain to you. You've got this 1908, 19. $1908. What's it called now? Can't remember. Declaratory Judgments Act. I don't know if it's in here. It's not in here. But, so you've got this 1908. Now, this is in my court. Previous to my court case, this did not show up. But it says, no action or proceeding in the High Court shall be open to objection on the ground that a merely declaratory judgment or order is sought thereby. And the said court may make binding declarations of right, whether any consequential relief is or could be claimed or not. I went into the court asking for a declaratory judgment, and they threw me out of the court, and I appealed it. The court said, yes, you've got to come, but they said I had to pay, and that's what I'm fighting. So that comes under the bills, the Declaratory Judgments Act, which is not in this one. It'll be over on the other one, okay, of 1908. So that's a different one. Oh, okay, so never mind. I don't think I can get into that. So now I'm going to go out of that bit for a bit, and I'll turn that bit off, and I'm going to post up this guy here and let you listen to him. Now, I want you to be careful. This is why you're going to hear him say that we are offering you to be all considered to be New Zealand Maori if you came on a ship, or if you were in New Zealand or born to New Zealand or were settled in New Zealand from the years of 1689, from the time of Cook's arrival until 1852. Why have they set it at 1852? They set it at 1852 because all of us had, well, there were some that were born there who did not have a nationality because they were born outside of their country, and they were in New Zealand through no fault of their own, or Australia, but there were others that deliberately had their nationality removed from them. It was those ships that they needed so that they could remove the nationality, which removed the alien status. See, the ones that were born, so a British national who was a subject under the Queen would go to New Zealand, and then he, with his British wife, would have a child, but because that child was born outside of the land, they had severed their connection to the land. That child was basically landless, nationalityless, everythingless. So there's that group. But they were no different from the New Zealand Maori. They basically became New Zealand Maori because they were in the same position. They had no nationality, and they had no name of the place that they belonged to. So they became the same, so they couldn't do anything with them. What they needed was a bunch of people to come on ships, and they placed these ships in specific areas around the country. and they needed to be aliens. So those parents that came in were aliens, but they were subjects of the Queen, but their children were neither alien nor native. They were non-existent entities. I don't know what they were, but they were not on the earthly plane. And so they needed a bunch of people that had a nationality, could sever their nationality, remove their nation status, link them up as subjects to give them the law of the 1688 right to petition. Then they were able to link them up to create a Supreme Court and create a Bank of New Zealand and sever Australia, and this is how it was. They needed those groups. So the ones that came after, so by 1852, New Zealand was a country in its own right. It had its own courts, everything. Now, when, this is taking a bit longer, I'm just going to take this video and put it on. Now, okay, I'm not going to play the video this time because it's too long. Now, when people came after that, they had their nationality, and rather than sever their nationality, which is a very, very, very bad thing to do, they did it to the children. They had to do it to children. Part of the white slave criteria was that 70 of the 200 travellers, they were allowed 200 travellers, and 70 of those travellers had to be children. And since they were children under God, I think it's something to do with they hadn't attained their complete nationality, or I don't know, but they needed them to be children. And so my great-great-great-grandfather was 12 years old, so he was one of those children. And another one was 14, and the other one was 16. They considered them children from 14 years old down. And so 70 of the passengers had to be children. After 1852, when those ships came, you came with your nationality and it was not severed. And then you entered New Zealand, and because of the sacrifice of the German settlers and some Scottish settlers who were severed from their sacred land, they did literally have their land stolen from them. Those people were able to retain their nationality and become citizens of New Zealand. That's when everybody became citizens, and the future descendants became citizens as well. And so it's this that they're trying to sever from us. And now I'm not going to play the video right now, but I did post it up on my Mary Pians. I'll come back and do another video. I'm going to put this on the YouTube. Now this is where they've changed SOS Scotland, Ireland. They've changed the name of our country to Aotearoa, and they're trying to get all these people with these ordinances to go under this place called Aotearoa. Don't do it. I'm not saying don't do it forever, but I'm saying don't do it until we check it out. So I'm going to do another video tomorrow on this video, and then I'll do another video tomorrow on this one here, which is in the WEF website. And in this one here, I'm going to show you where to find, I'm going to show you how to find where your ships, where your settlements are, and where your trusts are. And you're going to hear it from this guy. So you're going to hear it now. I've recorded this guy because things that I put up have been lately going missing, and I'm not able to get into them anymore. I don't know how long you're going to be able to get into what I've just shown you today. Other sites that I've gotten it from have been blocked, not only from me, but from people that have been watching my videos. It's a very, very difficult choice that I have to make. Either I make the videos and I show the information where I'm getting all my information from, and those sites are becoming blocked. Someone's coming up behind me and blocking them all. Or I don't show them, and you people are not able to know what I'm talking about. But listen out there, I'll just make this warning to you miserable, rotten bastards that are removing all this. I have printed everything. Every single thing, I have printed every single thing. I've got it. Now, if you want to go blocking all my websites and messing me around, I've got every single thing that's in there that's important. I print it. Hundreds and hundreds of pages I've printed. And if I have to go the slow way and scan it into my computer and then post it up on my site, I'm going to be doing it. And I'm doing it because I'm fighting for my people. And what I say is that my ancestors had to fight against guns in the trenches, and I risk my life every day. I believe I am risking my life, but I've made enough videos that there's enough people that know me now. It's all in the courts now. I've got everlasting life already. So I've attained that, and so if anybody tops me there now, it's all up there already. Just follow it. And so they fought in the trenches and I'm fighting on a computer. Right, I'll finish up the video now. Kate Floss, I'll make a nice smile for you. Don't forget to put a donation for a hat if you feel like you want to. Only if you feel like you want to. But don't, it's not really for anything, because I want to have the ability. I never know when I'm going to give up. This is hard knacker. I might give up tomorrow. I might give up next week. I really don't know how much strength I've got left in me. So please don't, if you do put a donation in, don't expect anything from it, because all you'll get is I'll buy a new hat in your name. And I won't mention your name because it makes it dangerous for you, but I'll give you a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and you'll know that I bought that with your little bit that you put in my bank. All right, don't forget to watch my YouTube. You've only got 700 viewers and I need 1,000. See you later, Kate Floss. Right, now how do I stop this? Right. Look better with my glasses, I think.